Okay, guys, I think we're ready. Thanks for your patience. We can start.
Yolanda, let's just wait another minute or two. We kind of got knocked off there, and I know at least Julie was on previously, and she hasn't rejoined, so maybe she will, and maybe we'll get some others. So let's just wait 1 minute or so.
Sorry about everything. We got it going though, so let me know when you guys are ready, okay?
Okay, very good.
Thanks.
Rob, do you have the public meeting script?
I do indeed. I am prepared this week.
All right, you always are. Thanks.
Yeah. Maybe I should ask, Yolanda, will you share the usual screen for public participation as well?
Yeah, I will. Once you start reading it, I'll go ahead and share the screen.
Perfect.
Hey, Joe, did you hear from anybody else that's not here that they will be joining us? Or alternatively, that they would not be joining us?
Charles is not going to be here. That's all I heard from.
I heard from Eric. He's not going to make it either. He's on the road.
Okay.
Well, let's begin. We'll hope that others will join us as matters move forward. If they do, we'll acknowledge that. We do have a quorum, so I'll call the meeting to order. Now is the time where I read the public participation script. Thank you for joining our meeting being held via Zoom webinar. When I call for public comment, please use the raise/lower hand feature to let me know you wish to be recognized. Our host will allow you to talk, and you'll need to unmute your microphone. If you have joined us by phone today, you can raise and lower your hand by pressing *9 and mute and unmute using *6. Again, you can raise and lower your hand by pressing *9 and mute and unmute using *6. If you're participating by phone, I'll call on you by reading the last 4 digits of your phone number. And if you're participating by a computer, I'll call the name that was listed when you entered our webinar. All right, very good. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. Again, we may have some folks that join us a little bit late today. We'll start with a roll call. Yolanda, do you want to take care of that for us?
Yep. Eric Anderson, and he's absent. Charles Biscon, he's absent. Deanna?
Present.
Rob?
Present.
Julie Gardner. She's absent as of right now. Alexa Gibson? She's absent. Present. Oh, you are. Sorry. There you are. Sorry. Danny?
Present.
Edward?
Present.
Vanessa? I think she's absent. I don't see her. Anne? And Kit?
Present.
Welcome.
Okay. Do we have any public or guest comments via telephone or via computer? I'm seeing and hearing none, so we will move forward to announcements. We have two new sitting members, Ann Iverson and Kit Fisher. Welcome, Kit. We're glad to have you. We'll talk a little bit with Ann at our next meeting when she can join us. Kit, if you'd like to, no pressure, but feel free to introduce yourself and say a few words if you'd like.
Hey, Rob, we need to do minutes first. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped it.
Thank you.
Welcome, Kit. We'll give you 2 minutes to think about your speech. How's that? Minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from February's meeting? Are there any changes, corrections, additions, etc.? Appearing that there are none, we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Go for it, Danny.
I move to approve the minutes.
We have a second.
I second.
Deanna has moved to approve the minutes. Alexis has seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The minutes are approved. And I'll just note for our record and for our notes that Julie has joined us. She wasn't late. She was on time. We had technical difficulties. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
Now, our new member, Kit, if you'd like to say a few words, please feel free.
Sure. Well, I know several of you, and yeah, it's good to see you, Grant and Ed. It's been many years, and Julie, it's been a while since you helped me buy my house 7 years ago. But am pleased and happy to serve on the advisory committee. I grew up here in Missoula. Lived here all my life. I currently work for National Wildlife Federation. I spend much of my day on Zoom calls, just like this now. With NWF, I focus on, I'm our wildlife programs director, so I focus on wildlife connectivity, migration issues, wildlife conflict issues. So I also serve on the board of Hellgate Hunters and Anglers in town. I'll leave my speech short at that. Thank you.
That's perfect. Thanks, Kit. Glad to have you aboard. We have a couple of discussion items. These are all under the heading of Grant Carlton. So Grant, I'll let you take it away with an update for the Dean Stone Corridor project.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Thanks, guys, for being here on this sunny day. Hopefully those that aren't with us are out doing something fun in the warmth. Yeah, so I wanted to take the opportunity to update you on a couple of the recently approved projects that you guys vetted. First, the Dean Stone Corridor. As you guys know, that transferred to city ownership just at the end of 2020. So it is fully in city ownership. And I would say it's progressing as planned. The trail is 95% built. We didn't connect it to the trails in the South Hill Spur by designs because we didn't want people flowing up into that trail until we were ready with signage and we could manage it properly. We are working with Five Valleys Land Trust. So if you guys remember, the corridor itself is about 4 miles of trail, 4 miles of new single track, and part of that is the old developer road, we call it, but mostly single track, and it connects down, or it will connect down to the South Hill Spur Trail. We discussed the potential for a single track spur off of kind of where the single track meets the developer road, and we can look at maps if it's helpful. I didn't necessarily, it isn't built yet, and the exact spot isn't finalized yet. But essentially, we're working with Five Valleys to construct an additional mile of trail. So we'll have 5 new miles of trail up there when it's all said and done. And Five Valleys is graciously donating the construction of that trail. And so the idea is still that come summer of this year, Deanstone will be open to the public. So we're hoping to, have our signage installed and all of the infrastructure that's necessary to manage it and allow the public to recreate safely up there. Park Board just Tuesday of this week adopted the special resource management plan for what is now called the Deanstone Preserve. I believe the South Hill Spur and the Deanstone Corridor will now be referred to as the Deanstone Preserve. And don't focus too much on the term preserve. That was just what we called it. Nothing has changed. And so again, hopefully that will be all connected and ready to roll this summer. Any questions on Deanstone? Moving on, Schmidt Road. I will pull up a map for this one.
Quickly, just back on Deanstone, Grant.
Sure.
So it's my understanding that this somewhat culminates our activities in that area, or do you have any idea what we're looking at in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as you guys probably know, there is an ongoing effort to come up with some sort of conservation and open space future for the Nature Conservancy owned land on the backside of Mount Deanstone. So the Nature Conservancy owns about 2,500 acres. So the corridor goes up to basically to the summit, and then on the backside towards Miller Creek and the Bitterroot is the TNC land. There's also some DNRC land back there, and Five Valleys is and was spearheading that project. That project is still active and live. I think we put a pin in it. The pandemic, largely due to the pandemic, I would say, that project is starting to get is starting to wake up, I would say, and so how that project will shake out is still to be determined. The city, myself and Morgan do have a seat on the working committee, they call it, or the working group. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but I'll have more information probably in the coming months on that. So just know that that's an ongoing project. The city is part of that, at least from a staff capacity standpoint at this point. We were pretty clear with Five Valleys Land Trust that if the city is going to put close to $1 million, like we did of the open space bond funds and the open space anonymous gift into the front side of Deanstone, we're not looking to immediately invest in the back side, at least financially, at least in a substantial way. I still kind of stand by that. But again, I think it's an important enough project for our community and for the land, for the wildlife, that could evolve over time. It has a lot of recreation and conservation potential, and obviously it's sort of in conservation now with TNC, but TNC does want to divest itself of that property. That's just not in their wheelhouse to manage that. Long story short, that one will evolve. The city is involved with it. Does that answer your question, Edward?
Yeah, I mean, it just points again to the challenges of, ultimately limited resources and many, many worthy projects.
Yeah. And I think, I will certainly keep you guys apprised as that one gets new legs, if you want to call it that. There are a lot of people at the table, a lot of stakeholders, a lot of land management organizations. So, I mean, FWP's there, the Forest Service is there, Five Valleys Land Trust, of course, and the Nature Conservancy, but also other groups like Mountain Bike Missoula. And, we're looking at it from a resource perspective. And again, it's that art of balancing the wildlife habitat and conservation with recreational value up there. And there's some the elk use portions of that ground. There's some really awesome opportunities for some trails as well. So it's to be seen how that balancing will play out. So I'll certainly keep you guys updated. I think it's a really exciting opportunity. And we've got some time. I know Five Valleys does have a purchase option on that piece of land. And that's a couple of years, that expires in a couple of years. So we've got some time, but you know, as you guys know, these deals do take some time. So you know, 3 years isn't a whole lot of time to actually make this size of a project come to fruition if we don't put the pedal down a little bit. So
Thank you. That was helpful.
yeah, and then one thing to add that is in the vein of Deanstone, if you guys remember, and I don't have a map of this one, but from the summit, basically where the Deanstone corridor trail terminates, Five Valleys and Mountain Bike Missoula received an RTP grant, the Recreational Trails Program through the state, to build an additional trail that leads from the summit of Deanstone into basically along the ridgeline into Patty Canyon up to the West Fork of Deer Creek Road. And I believe, last I heard, they're still planning to build that this year. So that's an additional few miles of trail that will also potentially be open, maybe towards the end of this year, maybe not until next year. I don't actually know. So there's some really nice momentum in that area, and that just bolsters the open space bond investment and the good work that you guys are helping us do. Any other questions on Deanstone? Schmidt Road, you guys recall, you recently recommended approval and council then approved the authorization of the expenditure of the open space bond funds on the piece, if you can see my screen highlighted, Schmidt Road, which is bisected by the Milwaukee Road corridor here. Essentially, so after council approved that, I had to navigate the county's process. So the county administers the open space bond, as you guys know. And so I had to go through sort of the finance process over there. So I've got a check in hand. The final iteration, I think, of the actual easement draft is in the landowner's hands. I expect that to be signed and official by the end of this week or next week. So it's basically a done deal. So that's exciting. We are, so Parks, our projects and planning team is currently in the process of creating sort of a more comprehensive vision for this whole stretch. If you can see my cursor of the Milwaukee Trail. So again, as you guys probably know, the Milwaukee Trail currently terminates just west of Reserve Street. And so the city owns this. Can you guys see my cursor?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So back in 2016, the city acquired this piece here. This is the Colon Ditch property. And we've commissioned designs, and a planning process is underway for actually spanning the Clark Fork River via a series of bridges. So that's actively being pursued. Obviously that will probably be a couple of years out, but we are actively working on it. And so I think we're planning to start building infrastructure on this Colon Ditch piece. I think it's in the works this year, maybe next year. And as a refresher, we do have an easement on this piece here owned by the Klaus family, and we've got an easement on this piece here owned by Knife River. So basically the only missing piece of the puzzle that would connect Reserve Street to Mullen Road via the Milwaukee Trail is one parcel here, and that is also owned by Knife River. And I am planning to reach out to them. We've had talks with them in the past. I kind of was, our focus shifted to the Knife River Ponds property, if you guys remember that project, also owned by Knife River. And so I am going to start the conversation with those guys to hopefully negotiate an easement across this piece too in the coming months. So hopefully, if that goes as planned, we'll then have a connection from the current terminus near Reserve Street all the way to Mullen Road. And obviously, I don't really know what the construction plan itself is, but that is one of our priorities. As you guys know, the Mullen area we're anticipating quite a bit of growth over there. 5,000 to 7,000 new housing units are anticipated as part of, I'm going to butcher the name, but what was formerly referred to as the Mullen Area Master Plan. And just a quick aside, I'm also, and I think you guys have been sort of, I've mentioned this in the past, but I am also in current talks with the airport to acquire their stretch of the Milwaukee Trail, which is about 3 miles. So basically, there's some FAA red tape to navigate there, but the airport is a willing seller of that stretch. So that's exciting. And at that point, we'll be working, once that's wrapped up, we'll be working probably simultaneously to connect Mullen Road over to the airport property via the Milwaukee Trail as well, which is, as you can see, will be a bit of a quagmire, but we've had connection with some of those landowners, so hoping for a smooth process there. Any questions on that?
So obviously, whoops, go ahead, Danny.
Oh, I was just gonna say, as we get further from the city core, and I guess you're still in city limits to an extent out there, is there room to partner with the county for using some of their share of the bond as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've had conversations with the county, and I think that there certainly is. I don't know what that looks like. And I don't have, any certain projects that we've discussed it with, specifically. But the short answer is yes. They are willing to partner. I think that is a priority of theirs. They're also simultaneously working on the Mullen Trail, which parallels Mullen Road. So that's something they're actively working on and investing in as well. And so I think there's some very obvious overlap. And so I will be continuing those conversations and hoping to bring the county on as a partner. And I think it makes sense, once we leave the airport, we're really, in the heart of the county at that point. So I think it makes sense for the county to sort of steer that ship at that point, with perhaps the city investing, from a financial perspective. But I can't really. I think the county is sort of recently working to. They're taking a hard look at their sort of open space program right now, and I think there may or may not be some changes there. So I kind of want to touch base with them once they've had a chance to fully vet that process to determine what their priorities are. And I will certainly come back to you guys, with any updates. That's a really good point.
So spanning the river is obviously a big part. It isn't necessarily a prerequisite to extending this bike trail, but spanning the Clark Fork River is going to be challenging. Is that proceeding, and how would that be funded?
That is proceeding. So we do have an engineering firm on board. That's moving along. I don't know a timeline. I can certainly find that out. I think the timeline is a bit up in the air. And so, yeah, so that's where we are with that. We're waiting on some design work to be done on the actual bridge or series of bridges. As far as the funding, it will obviously be a relatively expensive project. I don't know where all that funding will come from, and I don't think I think we're in the process of sort of working that out. So sorry, I don't have a better answer for you, but yeah, we're working on it.
Another big ticket item that I don't know if bond fund money was anticipated for that or.
Well, so as far as we do have $30,000 in the budget that's already set aside and earmarked for like the actual design and planning effort that it did not come from the bond. I know that there are other funds. We have park district funds, which is sort of the general park funds that could be used for this, or at least a portion of it. We've got impact fees from development in the area that also could be used for this, and we also have a couple $1 million earmarked out of the open space bond for, shared use paths. I will be sort of advocating for, if there is an open space bond request, I would like for it to be highly matched by other sources so that we can stretch our bond dollars as far as possible. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that you might see a request, for a capital improvement from the open space bond.
Yes, I agree. And it's another situation of limited funds and lots of worthy projects.
Absolutely. And this one, I think, just touches a lot of different people, right? I mean, whether it be for recreation or commuting, as that area grows, they're really, this is a main artery for moving sustainably through in a non-motorized way throughout, sort of or to the urban core from the fringe, I guess. So. And then, and as a refresher as well, back in July, the Conservation and Lands Advisory Committee and then Park Board approved a plan in this area that we call the Clark Fork Island. So there'll be a really cool birding loop on this island here. So, you know, the plan entails a series of bridges. Like I said, there'll be bike racks there. There's a nice, this is really excellent riparian habitat. And so there'll be like a non-motorized ped-only trail here. We've got plans to build some trails in this area as well. And so the whole system is seeing a lot of momentum, and I think it'll be a really cool area that builds on, you know, the Tower Street Conservation Area, as well as, you know, some of this area over by the wastewater treatment plant.
It is absolutely a beautiful, incredible area, that island.
Yep. Any other questions?
Okay. Thanks, Grant. Appreciate those updates. All exciting stuff. It's awfully nice to see how things progress, and sometimes it's piecemeal, but I can promise you once people get public access to that island, there's going to be a lot of thankful folks. It is a pretty special place. We have one action item on our agenda. It's a discussion and ultimately approval of the new vetting process. I just want to first say thanks again to the subcommittee for putting in the work, and thanks especially to Grant for putting in the work. I told you, Grant, the other day, your experience really shines for this. We really appreciate it. We struggled with those old forms for so long. This update's long overdue. And I do just want to thank the subcommittee too. I want to make sure I've got everybody. I think it's Charles, Edward, Deanna, Dan, and then Christine, who's no longer with us. I think that's everybody, but thanks again for going above and beyond the regular committee work and taking on this project as well. Grant, you may have some comments or explanation about this, and then we'll open it up to the group for their discussion as well, and then ultimately we'll entertain a motion to approve these. But go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, well, first I wanted to echo Rob's sentiment, and thanks to the subcommittee. Thanks for going above and beyond, like Rob said, and for your service. It was super helpful to have a group that was just dedicated to sort of working through that process. So thank you guys. So we've got a bit of a change, and I don't really know how this works procedurally, but I wanted to put this out to the Parks Board, and I did. They received it. So their meeting was Tuesday of this week, and they received it about a week in advance. And looking back, that wasn't quite enough notice, I don't think, for them. And I wanted to make sure they certainly, you know, you guys are the keepers of this process and these tools. They don't need to adopt it, but it was more of a courtesy to keep them apprised and in the loop and to get their feedback. I had a request to wait so that they have a little bit more time to review and provide input. If you guys are okay with it, I would like to request that we move that to next month's meeting, the actual adoption. That way we can just get a little bit more robust feedback from, you know, folks that really care about this stuff. Is that okay with you guys?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I also want to thank, I got some comments and feedback from some of you guys that weren't on the subcommittee, so thanks for that. And I wanted to really be able to think through some of those. And obviously if we adopted today, it wouldn't have been, you guys wouldn't have seen the final copy. So yeah.
And I haven't been sent a copy yet, so if I'm going to adopt, I'd like to at least get some eyes on it.
Yeah, good point. And we do have a couple of new members. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's on the bottom of the minutes or from last meeting, if you want to get one quickly. I saw it there. Is that right,
Put it
Joanne?
in the minutes.
And it should be attached to the agenda as well for this meeting, right, Joe?
Yeah, either the agenda.
Yeah, it's included with the agenda that I sent out.
Kit, let me know if you can't get a hold of that, and I'll send it out to you. Or if you can't get it in Word format, so you can track changes if you have any. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions or comments or feedback? And we can pull up those documents and talk through things now that we're all together, if we want.
I'll just give one comment. Basically, we'll say the same thing I said before. We struggled mightily with our old evaluation procedures, particularly trying to put numbers on really diverse projects, comparing apples and oranges. It didn't make a lot of sense. I think through experience, I know that this process is going to work a lot better. Not just the detail that's involved, but the overall process as well. It's really tough to try to compare and contrast the merit of different projects. One might be a trail, one might be a conservation easement, one might be an acquisition. Adding to that mix, now we've got capital improvements. So I think this is going to be a good process, and it's will be in hindsight that we realize its value most of all. So again, thanks for all the hard work.
Yeah, I would say the bulk of the praise goes to Grant. I mean, he did an amazing amount of work and pulling together a lot of different perspectives and such. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. I don't have any, I was kind of waiting to make sure that I gathered all the feedback. And like I said, I've talked to at least one Parks Board member who had some really good input. One thing I just wanted to mention that I'm probably going to infuse into the criteria, if you will, is a little bit more information related to climate change and climate change resiliency, and point back directly to some of our climate plans. That's something that I think we touched on basically by requesting that an applicant provide information related to how a project might conform or be consistent with plans. But I kind of wanted to specifically call out some of the climate plans. And so that's the only sort of, I would call that like a little bit broader of a change or an addition that I see right now.
Any other questions, comments at this time? We'll have a chance, obviously, next month to talk about this, but anything for the time being? All right, we will move forward. There's not much left. Grant, I'm going to mention elections. Traditionally, for our committee, we elect a chair and a vice chairperson, and traditionally we've done that on an annual basis. We've been through a lot of changes, new bond, a lot of new members, and we've been remiss in doing that, and I've long overstayed my welcome. So if we will have elections next month for a new chair and a new vice chair. If anybody has a burning desire to do that, let me know or let Grant know. It's generally not a terribly controversial issue, but just let us know, and then we'll have that as an action item and a vote on that as well. Any other questions, comments, anything for the good of the order today?
I wanted to just mention something really quickly if nobody else has anything. Doesn't look like it. Just for the new members, Kit and Julie, Julie's new-ish, with you guys and Anne and Vanessa, I am planning to do some onboarding and some education to get you guys up to speed on sort of the process and some of our policies and plans. So it generally takes an hour or two of your time. So I'll be reaching out sometime in the next probably week or two to try to coordinate that. And we'll just do a virtual meeting where I kind of share some information and send you basically a packet of info. Does that sound good to you guys?
That would be super. Thank you.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Great. Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
I had a quick question. With the comments from the park board, will we see those before the next meeting? Will we all see them at the next meeting? Like, how will that work for us reviewing those?
Yeah, that's a good question. So here's my plan, and please provide any thoughts. I am going to sort of put a deadline on the Parks Board review, and hopefully that'll be a week from now or something like that is what I was planning. At that point, I will take all the comments and feedback into consideration and basically go into the draft and track any changes that I make. So what I'll do is I'll send you guys a Word doc that shows the changes redlined. I'll also send a clean copy. And so that way you guys can see what has changed and provide feedback or input if necessary. And then you'll also see a clean copy that you can review and sort of reconcile. If there are some questions, we will discuss it as a group before adoption, just because of public meeting laws. So I'm hoping that there isn't anything too comprehensive, or I'm hoping there isn't like a substantial change in format or function or structure. I'm thinking more wordsmithing and, have you thought about this kind of revisions. So assuming that there aren't sort of, more substantial or material changes, you'll see all of those changes. You'll have a chance to provide feedback on those changes. And then if you guys decide after all of that information is in your hands that you want to adopt, then you'll have the ability to adopt.
Grant?
Does that make sense?
Grant, because of the public process, we cannot send it out without ahead of time. It will be the 24 or 48 hours prior to the meeting. I have to include it with the minutes. Sorry.
Right, but we can send it out like a week ahead of the meeting, correct?
No, it has to be with the minutes, the agenda, because the public doesn't have the time to look at it. These guys would get an advantage. So no, you can't.
Well, no, I'm saying if we notice the meeting a week ahead of time.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
At that point,
Okay.
we can get it in ahead of time and put it out there. Yes.
Okay, so we'll just notice the meeting and send you the materials as early as we can, to give you guys a chance to vet that and review it, and then hopefully we'll adopt if there aren't too many issues.
Sounds like a plan. Anything else for today? Hearing nothing further, we will adjourn. Thanks, everybody. See you next month. Go enjoy the sunshine.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.